Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. So this is the Play versus Grails Smackdown. I'm James Ward from TypeSafe.
I'm Matt Rabel from the U.S.
Yeah. Wow. We need a wrestling bell.
Right.
Ding, ding. Okay, round one. Here we go. Okay. So you want to talk about why we're here for a Smackdown?
Yeah, so we wanted to do this pretty much because these are two of the most hyped full stack web frameworks in the Java space, and they often get included in just web frameworks in general, even though they're full stack. And so at the time, this was about last March, we both kind of had a passion for Play, and it was kind of in our minds, you know, taking the place that Grails had, and we said, so let's do a Smackdown. And let's figure out, you know, comparing apples to apples, how these things actually perform, how it is to code them, and how to do all that. So we basically planned this app out and, you know, had different steps of creating it and then a bunch of tests that we ran after it.
Yeah. So that's what you're going to see here today is just a little comparison on the apps that we built with each framework. And we're going to go through a bunch of different ways to look at comparing them and then try to draw some conclusions at the end. So first, let's talk about the apps that we built. It was called Happy Trails, and then it's where we deployed it is ubertracks.com. So you can actually see the apps on ubertracks.com. The bike.ubertracks.com, that's the Grails one, and then hike.ubertracks.com, that's the Grails one, or the Play one. Yeah. So a few things that we wanted to try out and exercise in each framework, you know, server-side templates. We wanted to do Java with Play 2, since that seems to be the most common way that people are using Play today. And form validation, data pagination, you can read the list, but a bunch of different things that we wanted to have the app doing to make this really like a real world app. You know, a lot of times when you compare things, it's not really real world. You know, I just saw a benchmark come out today and they were comparing like different app servers, and they had Netty as one of their web frameworks that they were testing, and they were testing JSON in Netty, and I'm just like, Netty doesn't really do JSON. You know, it's not a full stack web framework. Hard to even call it a web framework. So we really wanted to be able to have something that was a full application with a lot of different pieces in it and test that. And we had some stretch goals that we also wanted to try to reach, like uploading photos to Amazon S3, search. I don't think either of us got to search.
Oh, I got search.
Sweet. Did you just add that yesterday?
No, remember, it's just a plugin.
Oh, that's right.
Hey, just add it. Grails makes that easy. So our schedule, like I said, we started this last year. It was for the UberConf conference in Denver. And we basically started out week one, like creating a domain model. And then week two, you know, having that data layer wired up to URL design. And both frameworks, you know, have this ability of a routes file or whatever that you specify all your URLs in. So, you know, that's kind of where we wanted to start it. And I think it emphasizes, you know, that URLs and HTTP are very important in both frameworks. And then create our controllers in the third week and authorization. And the fourth week have our views and miscellaneous polish in week 5. And I'm glad we like planned it out like that, because it did take a while and we did run into, you know, roadblocks and headaches along the way.
Yep. And at each step along the way, we've actually made beer an integral part of building these applications, right. Which, you know, is probably one of the major conclusions we draw from this is software development is better with beer.
Yep.
Unfortunately, we don't have any beer right now, so this is like the first thing we've done around this app that didn't involve beer. So.
And all those load tests, so they're probably invalid.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. So first, for those of you that aren't familiar, I should ask, who here has done Play development before? Okay, great. So for those of you that haven't, quick little intro to Play. It's a web framework for Java and Scala. Both Java and Scala are first-class citizens when you build Play applications, and you can choose to use Java, Scala, or both together. There's a number of different pieces of Play. Some of the prominent pieces are asynchronous I/O based on Netty, non-blocking async, WebSockets, server-side templates. The default is Scala for those, but you can plug in Java, Groovy, a number of other templating languages. And then integrating things like Akka is super easy. So this is the old definition from the Play website. Should update that. But important features here, lightweight, stateless, web-friendly, and for highly scalable applications. Some of my favorite features, it's a really simple web framework. Really works with the HTTP protocol rather than fights against it. URL routing, as Matt said, is just baked in. Hot class reloading, so even though it's statically typed languages, it will automatically reload the classes, and then when you hit reload in your browser, you see the changes immediately. So pretty cool feature there. And then great testing support, Java NIO, mentioned that. An asset compiler, so if you're doing like a modern web application with JavaScript and CSS, less, those sorts of things, the asset compiler makes it easy to do that. So a bunch of great things about Play, but let's hear about Grails.
How many people are using Grails? So it's about a third. Play had half.
Yeah.
So a little more Play fans here.
Well, it was created here, right?
Well, we'll see at the end how many.
Play is. I forgot to mention that as a feature of Play. It was invented in France, right? So that's a good thing. Yep. Thank you, France. Yep. Yeah, I think.
Where's Grails? You think Belgium, maybe? I don't know. So Grails 2 is basically, powered by Spring. That's all you need to know. And that'll basically allow you to get into most organizations without much problems there. As you know, it's a Groovy-based framework. Was originally, copied from Ruby on Rails. They called it Groovy on Rails, but the Rails guys didn't like that, so they had to change the name. I think Grails is a great name. I think it's one of the best named web frameworks. If you try to search for a lot of these other web frameworks and try to find information on them, for instance, Play, good luck, So my 10 favorite features, SpringSource has always done an awesome job at documentation. And I love that I don't have to often ask questions on a mailing list or go to Stack Overflow, even though we both ended up doing that. Their documentation is typically top-notch. And there it happens.
Thank you, Nikolai. Right. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yep. If anybody wants to go get a beer, we won't be offended if you get up.
Right. That's a valid excuse for leaving. Clean URLs, just like Play. Gorm, it's a really nice system for interacting with the database. It's Hibernate-based. It works well. And Grails doesn't switch out their preferred persistence mechanism like every year.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
It's got really good IntelliJ IDEA support, and IntelliJ's caught up on the Play 2 support.
Yeah.
Zero turnaround, not the company, the actual feature. So you don't have to reload anything. Excellent testing support. Groovy GSPs. I like it all.
Yep. Great. Okay, so a little bit about our setup. We both use IntelliJ for development. Yeah, we love IntelliJ. It's a great framework, or a great tool for building these apps. GitHub for source control. It's all, we put it on mine. You should have come up with some more shared location, but it's on github.com/JamesWard, and it's called Happy Trails. We use CloudBees for doing continuous integration and Heroku for our production systems. And we have CloudBees set up. It's pretty cool. So we just commit to GitHub. CloudBees, of course, picks up the changes and then does a build, runs all our tests, and then if the tests are successful, then it automatically deploys to Heroku. So it's a pretty sweet little setup.
And then we also used, we actually hired last year a QA person because, tests are fun to write, but integration tests are just painful. And I don't know if it was a Groovy thing or whatever, but I ended up writing so much code for the integration test for each pages in the Jeb and Spock setup that I was like, so this is just proving the stuff they already wrote works, but what about someone that comes in and actually pounds on it? So I had this lady that I had worked with before, hired her. I think she cost us $300 or something like that.
Yep.
And, TypeSafe wouldn't even pay for it. I had to pay for it out of my own pocket. And,
Matt
I guess it was Heroku then.
It was Heroku then. Matt has sponsored a lot of things for this. Our load tests that we did, they cost $150 or something like that, right?
$75 each, yeah.
$75 each. So Matt is looking for work. If you want to repay the favor to Matt, hire him. He's actually looking for play work, right? So.
But we also use BrowserMob. That's what we didn't talk about.
BrowserMob.
So BrowserMob was bought by Newstar, and they actually you can use virtual users or you can use real users to actually hit your web app. You give it a script and it browses through the app. So we took that, it runs in the cloud, and pounded on our apps with that.
Okay, so let's walk through some of the codes just so you can get an idea for the different frameworks. We're going to try to compare kind of side to side different ways of doing things in the different frameworks. So First, database stuff. This is in Grails. Go ahead.
Yeah, the Hibernate is a default persistence provider. You create models, Hibernate creates schemas for you. It's all pretty easy.
You can certainly use Hibernate with Play. The default is ebean in Java, so you create evolutions and get to version your database changes. And so this is a snapshot of my ups and downs for the database that I create. This got created for me the first version, but then I had to create subsequent versions. Pretty typical evolutions process there. Yeah, so that's database stuff. We use, on Heroku, we use Postgres 9.1, which has some cool features to that. One of the things that we discovered, though, about the database on Heroku is we're using like the cheapo version of Heroku's cloud Postgres database, and it only allows 30 concurrent connections for a whole application. And so what we found when we first did a lot of our benchmarking was that a lot of our performance was really gated on the database and how quickly we could talk to the database. So that was an interesting discovery. Yeah. So URL mapping in Grails?
Yeah, URL mapping in Grails. You just modify the URL mappings file. You can put in your constraints and things they can't get to. Otherwise, it's just controller in action.
And Play. This is the URL mapping in Play, and one of the nice things about Play's URL mapping is that this is the only place that I define any URLs is in the routes file in Play, and then it will compile the reverse routing table, and then everywhere in my code I use the reverse routing table so that if I need to refactor URLs, then I can just do that in the routes file, and it reflects everywhere throughout the application automatically.
So with Grails and models, all properties are persisted by default. If you have a named property in the file, it'll get persisted. You also put your constraints in there, your mappings, one-to-many mappings and many-to-one and all that kind of stuff is super easy compared to using raw Java and Hibernate and all their annotations. And you override methods for different lifecycle events. So they've really simplified, the API for Hibernate and made it easy to use and easy to understand.
Nice. For Play, we use the JPA annotations with ebean, so it looks very similar to the Hibernate JPA code that you've probably written before. We can also do declarative validations in our model objects, so that's pretty nice. There's a nice query DSL through ebean, and then it supports lazy loading. Maybe I don't know if we fixed the Scala template lazy loading problem or not yet, but that was one problem that I ran into was I was in my Scala template trying to do lazy loading of properties, and that didn't work. And I don't remember if that's something we fixed or not in Play.
Controllers in Grails, very simple. You just have a method, usually empty. You get parameters from that using the params. And then you can get other things like regions and comments in this example. So, a lot of them just have really thin methods with only a few lines in them.
Why did I always paste in more code than you?
Because I think you had 30% more code.
Oh, we'll get to that. Okay, so Play, it's stateless. The actions, the controllers are composable, they're interceptable, so it has a pretty nice model for creating RESTful controllers that are stateless and allow you to serialize to HTML, JSON, XML if you want, those sorts of things.
The views in Grails are GSPs, Groovy Server Pages. If you're familiar with JSPs, it makes a lot of sense, except when you come to creating tags. It actually makes sense. With JSP, it not always did. Layouts and templates use a site mesh under the covers. Allows a main.gsp that does your layout. Works really nice. And then the feature that I really like is optimized resources. The ability that when you're in dev mode, you can switch it, but it also concatenates and minifies and gzips all your front-end optimization stuff, puts all your JavaScript at the bottom, and it really takes into consideration that front-end optimization is important. It's not just how fast the back end is, it's how fast your front end renders in a browser.
So the default in Play for server-side templates is Scala. One nice thing about them is that they're two nice things. One, they're compiled, so they actually compile down into functions that I can call from my controllers. They can also be tested directly because they're just functions that I can call. And because they're just compiled down into functions, they're also composable. So it has this really nice model for being able to take a template and then have other pieces of the template that compose in the other parts of the page. So it's a pretty nice nice model. It's also, IntelliJ now has support for code hinting in the Scala templates, so that's been really nice.
And we inspired that, right?
We did, absolutely,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
Because
so.
in our last presentation, we said there is no IDE support for the Scala templates,
Right.
and then the JetBrains guy said, "Hey, we'll do it."
So you can thank us for that.
Yep, yeah. You're welcome. Okay.
So validation in Grails, again, it's in your model object, and then you can basically say flush equals true, and that'll give you back the errors, or errors equals true is another way to do it, and then you actually get that message from the flash, and then you can redirect back to the page. And there's tags for it to say, hey, does it have errors? If it does, display them. It all works pretty nicely.
And Play is a pretty similar model. We define our validations on our models, and then we do this form mapping, which says, all right, take request to input. This could be from post parameters. This could be from JSON, and we map that into a value object, and then we can get out any errors and return an error code, and then display errors into a template if we want to.
So IDE support, just use IntelliJ. Does anyone use Eclipse with Grails? Not even STS? We got one guy that works with SpringSource that uses it. Where's Josh? Josh, are you here?
There
he is. You use it, don't you? STS?
No, he's an IntelliJ guy.
But the reason I like IntelliJ, and if you're at my earlier talk, you know this, it's because of its web support. It's because of the JavaScript and CSS, and we wrote a fair amount of it in this. Not a whole lot, right?
Not a whole lot for this one.
But it still just works great for that.
That's an interesting point. This app that we built, we wanted to stick with a traditional web architecture, so we didn't get real fancy with single-page app stuff. That'll be the talk for next year, maybe.
Well, and we thought about it, and if we started using like MVC framework and JavaScript on the front end, or Flex, he probably wanted to use Flex.
Come on, dude, that was years ago, man.
Then we would get into a situation where we're not really testing the back end as much, and we're not comparing, the server-side templating and stuff like that.
Yeah. So in Play, really easy to set up in your IDE, and Java is a really nice thing to have to code your application in, because of course there's really great support in many IDEs for Java. So that's been nice. Remote debugging support, or debugging support through the remote debugger, so you just listen on the debug port and then connect IntelliJ to that debug port, and now you can get real debugging in your server-side code. It's
But
pretty
it
nice.
says you have limited testing, so you can't run your tests.
I think that's been fixed. Yeah, it has in IntelliJ. So IntelliJ you can now run. Yeah, I guess that's an artifact of last
But Eclipse
last year's.
still is terrible.
The TypeSafe has been investing in the Eclipse plugin for Scala, and along with that also the Play support.
Right.
And so it is getting better, but I use IntelliJ. So. Yeah.
So the other thing we added was the ability to have some back-end process. We want not just to be a web app, but to have the ability to basically send out an email. So we have these trails that people put in, and then for a certain region, you can subscribe and say, hey, I want to know about new trails that get added by people. So with Grails, I created this schedule job that used Quartz, I believe. It was just the scheduler plugin, and works pretty nice. Uses a mail service, sends out an email at midnight every night if you sign up for new emails.
Doesn't that have the problem though, where when you're running on more than one node, that it actually will execute that job multiple times, one for each node that you're running on?
That's why I got those emails. I got 2 last week.
Yeah, see? Yeah,
Yep.
see. Play has a way where you can do basically the same thing. You can run the background job actually in the web process, but then if you're running on more than one node, you have a problem. So I went added it a little bit different way. I created basically a standalone application which sends out these nightly emails. And so that, on Heroku, what I do is I just tell Heroku, like, every night just run this static void main class, and that's how I get my
And there's no reason
daily
I couldn't have
digest.
done that on Grails. I mean, I could put a Java class in there and
Yep.
execute it too. So
You could have done the same way. You just failed. So sorry. Yeah.
the other thing we wanted to add was an Atom or RSS feed. And so with Grails, it was install plugin and add this method to render the feed.
Yeah, unfortunately, RSS wasn't quite as easy with Play. There may be an RSS feed thing now, plugin now in Play, but at the time there wasn't, and so I had to kind of do things a little bit manually through Roam. It turned out to not be too hard, but it was definitely a little bit more work than I think it took you to get the RSS support.
Right. Email with Grails, 5 lines.
I'm only 5 lines, and then I've got configuration.
That's
you didn't
all
even show your
configuration.
configuration.
No?
So.
I guess
No,
not.
yeah, so you didn't show your config. Yeah. We did use the SendGrid Heroku plugin to make it easy we didn't have to maintain any SMTP server or anything. We just used SendGrid, which is an add-on for Heroku. That was nice. Photo upload in Grails, how did that go? To S3? Yeah, that well, huh?
Yeah. It was,
okay. Yeah, not so much.
Right.
Okay, that's too bad. Unfortunately, Play, it was pretty easy. So super easy to upload these photos up to S3 and set up CloudFront, and then they're all now offered through a CDN. Pretty nice.
That's all Java, right?
Oh yeah, it's just using the Amazon Web Services Java API.
So yeah, I could do it.
You
in
could have
Grails,
done it.
too.
You were just
right. I should have just copied your code.
You could have just copied my code.
So testing in Grails, unit tests are very easy with test4 and mock. They make it very easy to mock out your service objects or your domain objects. The URL mappings unit test mixin. You can tell SpringSource name that class, nice and long. Integration testing with Groovy test case, and functional testing with Jeb. And like I said, I really liked Jeb, and I liked how it would run Chrome for me or Firefox or use the HTML driver. That was really nice, but it was just one of those things where unit tests or integration tests, like writing those and running them, is just painful, especially when you got to wait for Groovy to start up each time. And so I know I could have used the Grails console and maybe made it a bit faster, but I always thought that something else was wrong, so I'd restart it. And it worked, and it was nice, but it wasn't always working well. And one of the things I noticed is I actually had a test last summer that I had to run through Chrome. It wouldn't work through the HTML unit driver. And then once I upgraded to 2.10 or 2.21, it all worked fine. So,
cool. Testing support and play, I was just using JUnit. Nice thing about testing support and play is that we can test a bunch of different things kind of differently. We can test just our templates. We could test just our controllers. We can test our routes and make sure that the routing is as we expect it. So we can do kind of all these different levels of testing. Regular unit, functional tests. We can do integration tests with Selenium. And it all runs in the same test framework. So usually when I'm building a play application, what I did for this application was I have one console window that's play, twiddle, run, and then I have one console window that's play, twiddle, test. And so this is just constantly rerunning my tests. So every time I make a change, it'll rerun my tests. And if I need to go into my browser to check something, I go to my browser. If I need to check the test, I go to that console window. So it created a pretty nice experience for me for being pretty quick at my iterations and doing some test-driven development stuff. So it's nice.
for the demo data in Grails, you just use a Bootstrap class. And if there's no users, then add them. And you did it a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much the same thing. So if there are no users, if I'm in dev mode, then load my demo data.
Right. So they both had that feature. It's pretty nice. Configuration in Grails, they like to comment out a lot of things at the top. You got to scroll down to see stuff, but it's basically pretty easy. It's just a big config file. No XML, which is nice.
Yep, that is nice. That wasn't a shot at me. There's no XML.
No. I don't know who was it shot at.
Yeah, who was that?
They laughed.
Yeah, okay. I guess they knew who you were talking about. Okay. So the configuration in play, that's based on the type-safe config library. It's a really nice config library. You can override config through Java properties. You can do environment variable substitution, which is really nice for Heroku because that's how they do their config. And then you can run with multiple config files. So I have a prod config file that allows me to switch my configuration in the production environment. And then the syntax is kind of JSON-ish for how you set your properties in type-safe config. So pretty nice.
For authentication, Spring Security UI plugin.
Nice.
This is awesome. You just configure it and it works. The one problem I had with it is it's based on like jQuery UI, and so it would have been cool like 3 years ago. And we used Bootstrap for this because that was cool last year. And so at one point it was like, do I take the time to go and refactor this thing to make it look like Bootstrap? And I just decided not to. So if you look at my app and you look at like the sign up page, it's like jQuery UI and the rest of it's Bootstrap.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly. Okay, so authentication in Play, one of the core philosophies is to use cookies and remain stateless. So there is a nice security authenticator class that makes this easy. There's also some Play plugins like Deadbolt that also make this pretty easy to do authentication. I actually ended up doing a bit of work on the authentication part of my app. The reason is because I didn't really like some of the ways that people were doing authentication in Play, so I did it differently.
That's because it didn't exist.
It may not have existed, the Deadbolt plugin. But I wanted to do things like only store a hashed password and some of these typical security things, and that wasn't something that was just out of the box yet. Okay, so now the fun part. Let's get into some metrics where we actually compare these things kind of side by side in performance and all sorts of fun stuff.
Right, so I've concentrated a lot of my career in the last few years on page speed. And people pay me to make their apps twice as fast, and all you got to do is do a lot of the YSlow stuff. And so so the first thing I did was compare these two, and you'll notice here, what's the score? It's like a 95
yeah, you did
for
pretty
the
good.
Grails version, and an 86 for yours. So you got a B, right? Which isn't too bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Right, but I got an A.
I'd never even run PageSpeed before, so...
Right, he actually installed the plugin for the first time today, so maybe your apps won't suck so bad now.
It just was unoptimized, right?
Right.
I could have gotten that A.
Well, but you can't gzip in Play.
No, you can now. 2.1 has filters. You can
Can you
gzip.
concatenate and minify and all that?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Yeah?
I think so. Guillaume, are you out there? Yes?
Yes? All right.
Yep. Okay.
Page speed, here's a good one. This is from Google, right? This is, what did I get? 93.
Oh, man.
And so this checks
nice.
like image optimization, deferred parsing of JavaScript, minifying your HTML and all kinds of stuff like that. His gets a 49.
Ouch. Ouch.
Right?
I think this just
the biggest thing is gzipping, though, right? And you could have turned that on. I mean, I just ran these last week. You could have.
I could have.
But
I failed.
It was too hard.
Yeah. Well, no, it wasn't too hard. I think this proves that you actually build websites for a living, and I talk about building websites for a living.
Lines of code. The Grails app comes in at a slim and stealth 1,800 lines.
1,800 lines. Wow.
All groovy.
All groovy. Okay, so a little bit more here. 2,200, 2,251. And we got some Java, some HTML. Why didn't you have any HTML? It's all GSPs, huh?
Right, I guess that's called groovy by clock.
I got some SQL. That was my evolution scripts, which were auto-generated for me. I didn't have to write those, so you can just knock off that 150
Where did you
lines.
get the SBT? Is that like the
Scala? That's the SBT, yeah, the SBT definition. Yeah.
So that's 30% more lines of code.
Yeah.
But for Java, that's not bad, right?
Right, this is Java.
Groovy.
If I did it in Scala, it would have been like 100% less.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. That's what Martin told me. That's
code?
what Martin said in his... Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's what Martin said this morning.
So this is where it got fun, right? This was like a week before we did the talk, and we've been kind of doing this again this week and using BrowserMob to really test the app. And now it's called Newstar, but it used to be BrowserMob. So load testing, one dyno, right? So this is one web server. Basically, Grails was able to get 30% more transactions. And I just ran these last week, right? And I had 7 failures and you had 8.
Well, that's not bad. So
Right,
what happened when you reran these today, though?
Well, we still got more to go.
Okay, right. Okay, we'll get there.
So load testing with one dyno, the data throughput on Grails was, almost 50 megs at its peak. With Play, it was 25, like half data throughput. So not that great.
Yeah.
Load testing with 5 dynos, so this is 5 web servers. I actually had less transactions, so you did better when there was more servers.
Well, that's good.
Right? You had
Play
twice
scales.
as many failures.
Scales
but
up. Yep.
There's only a couple failures.
Yeah, twice as many. You had 2, I had 4. That's
Right.
you're right. Technically twice as many.
Right. And then the data throughput, I get up to 60, and you actually beat me there. So it looks like if you have more web servers, it does better.
Yeah, that's good. So I wasn't real happy about these results, and unfortunately, Matt was updating these things last week, and I was in Canada doing something, and so I didn't get a chance to update my app. But I'm like, all right, this is not good. The thing that I think we realized through this whole thing is that really our application was pretty gated on the database. That database, that 30 connections, our performance was actually pretty abysmal because we were just sitting around. No matter how many HTTP connections we'd throw at the thing, we were just sitting there waiting for the database.
Well, and the funny thing about the Grails app is, I got recommendations from a couple of people that the max active connections we both had set at 4, and they were like, don't set it at 4, set it at -1, infinity, right? And we ran one of those load tests, and half of mine resulted in errors because there wasn't enough database connections. So you got to know what your database capacity is, how many connections you can make to it, or you're just going to get errors all the time.
So it turns out that this benchmarking stuff, it really turns into an arm race once you have time to actually to look into why things are slow and how they could be faster. And so I had some free time between like Devoxx London and here, and so I was like, hey, I could add caching in, right? Caching solves all problems in computing. And so I started adding caching in and was able to get the Play app up to 2,200 is what I got today, right? 2,200 requests per second. Before the caching, when we were gated on the database, I was at about 220 requests per second. So about a 10x improvement by just putting in caching. And the caching, all that it does is, store this stuff in a cache, and when this request comes into the homepage, instead of going to the database, don't go to the database for anything, pull it out of the cache if it's there. So I kind of was cheating, I'll admit.
The interesting thing about last year when we first had these numbers was Grails beat Play soundly by like 30% or something like that, and it only had like 200 requests a second. And what happened was a lot of the Play committers, after we did the talk, were like, hey, what are you doing? You forgot to put this 50 lines of code in that makes it fast when you're talking to a database, right? Because it's like asynchronous by default. And we added that in, you got up to 250, and Grails was at 198, and we upgraded both of ours to the latest versions, and Grails dropped from 190 to 118. And we've never been able to get it like above that just on the basic stock configuration. And then he does the caching thing and I did it too. And with Grails we saw the same result, that basically you can get a 10x performance increase by adding caching in your controllers.
Yeah. You guys want to see a live load test? You guys want to see a live load test? You want to see if we can actually do this? Okay, so I'm on a server on EC2. Let's make sure that this stuff is all working. Okay, so I'm going to do Apache Bench, and you want to see Grails first?
Nope.
Yeah, okay, let's see Grails first. So let's send 10,000 connections, and we'll just do 100 concurrent. And we're running on 2 dynos right now. So Bike, remember that one, is the Grails app. So, forgot one thing, AB/. Okay, so let's send 10,000. You didn't scale up your app to more dynos or anything, did you?
I'm just fast.
That's running pretty fast right now.
Baby.
That's good. Go Grails. Go Grails. Yeah. So there we go. So you see here, we just got 874 requests per second. So not bad for Grails for a first showing, live first showing. Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, that's way better. This has caching in it, so it's way better than the 118.
It's better than 118 for sure.
Yeah. So let's do the same thing now against the Play one. So that's the Hike one. And you didn't scale me down or anything, did you?
Not yet.
Okay, all right. Oh, wow. Oh, we just killed it. Oh, ouch. Nice. Yeah. Okay, that was nice. My favor, but I'll take it.
That one did.
Yep, that one did. Okay. Anyways, caching certainly helps. It helps a whole lot. Don't go to the database except for when you absolutely need to.
But the thing that really showed us in the first time I saw it, I had a great follow-up slide. It's still coming. But this one's kind of with a little more stats. Basically, A/B test, all it does is get the first byte and then says, hey, I'm done. Right? And so that's not a real test of what real browsers and real users see. So you can see here's 5 dynos and 100 users. And these are real users, meaning that there's Amazon instances that are started up. They use a real browser and they run the scripts and go, wait until the DOM loads and then say, okay, that
So
counted.
this is loading all the dependencies in the page. So it's loading your JavaScript, HTML, CSS. It's loading all that stuff. So whereas that A/B test, all that's testing is just the Play app. It's not testing how long it actually takes for the full page to actually be usable by the end user.
Right. So I think this was before you added caching, right? Or either of us added
Yeah,
caching.
this is before either
But
of
he
us
was
had
still
caching.
at like 250 requests a second. I was at 118. Right. Number of transactions for Grails, 10,000. Transactions for Play, 7,000. Right. So it's 30% faster for real users, even though it's twice as fast based on Apache benchmarks.
Yeah. And were you using a CDN at
No.
that point? Yeah. See, I wasn't using a CDN either. And then I think we both added CDN since.
Well, no, the difference was I had the concatenation and minification because I actually
that's
took
right.
the
And
time
you had
to do
gzip.
that.
You had
And, I
gzip
didn't
too. Yeah.
say it exists and I'm not going to use it like you did.
Yep.
So I came up with this, and I checked this in, 2 days ago?
Yeah.
I think you were in London. And,
Yeah.
and it was like, he had these Apache benchmarks, right, that are like, I'm twice as fast as you, eat it.
Yeah.
Right? And
No,
I
not
was like,
twice as fast,
well,
10 times.
Well, check it out. In the browser, I'm 61% faster than you. And then he goes and sits with the founder of Play and figures out all the caching stuff and blows my doors off. But at least I didn't sit with the Grails guys and figure it out.
That's so not true. I was 78% faster. So this site is funny. This is the site whichloadsfaster.com, whichloadsfaster.com, and every time you run it, you get totally different results.
Right.
So, it's wonderful for having screenshots that say the thing you want, right?
Totally. And then the other thing I did this a couple of nights ago. I think it was 2 nights ago. Basically ran Zap from OWASP, which is a penetration testing tool, and you can record, your actions through the app so you get past the login page and see if there's any vulnerabilities. And with Grails, we found there was a cross-site scripting and SQL injection. But
Ouch.
the SQL injection is actually funny. I don't know.
No, they're not funny at all.
Well, the reason they said there was SQL injection is because there was a stack trace with org.hibernate. And I don't even think it was a stack trace. It was just a one-liner. And I was running in dev mode. If I had ran in production mode, it wouldn't have showed that. But still, it brings out that by default, those could exist. And then with Hike, it just had a couple.
Yeah, play. We just had a couple small things.
Right.
Password autocomplete in browser. Yeah, I guess I should turn that off.
It is important to try out that tool on your website because it does give you a good idea. And if you don't use that tool, then you got to pay people like $100,000 to come in and say the same thing. So
Yep.
you should at least use that first.
And if you want
It's
to
a
pay
great
Matt
tool.
to come in and run the tool for you,
Right,
you can do that.
I'd be happy to do that. I only charge 50.
Yeah,
Right.
50,000.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
So now we got some funny graphs, or pretty graphs,
Pretty.
depending on how
They're
you
pretty.
want.
Yeah. Okay.
Google Graphs.
Jobs. So we threw Spring MVC into this one just to give you some kind of idea of how that looks in here as well. So Play Framework, not as many jobs yet. It's picking up, right?
No, but if you're a Play Framework consultant, maybe it's lucrative, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you're one of a few, so
Yep,
you never know there.
it's picking up. LinkedIn, people with skills for these different technologies, still Play Framework.
Well, this was a surprise, right? More people have Grail skills than Spring MVC.
That was a surprise.
Right? And then we
Yeah.
even double-checked it today.
Yeah.
And it still exists, so a lot of people picked it up and learned it at one time.
Maybe Grails is used in some other industry, like cow farmers. They're like called Grails or something.
I don't know.
Could be some explanation.
Google Trends, unfortunately, Grails peaked in 2009, or at least people were searching for it most then. And
Plays on the up.
it's on the up, but they're both. Grails is making a comeback.
Oh, yeah?
2013.
Nice. They're both coming back at the same rate too.
Right,
That's
yeah.
cool. All right.
Job Trends?
Yeesh, not good for me.
No.
No.
But if you quit and be a consultant, maybe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that could be good for me.
Mailing list traffic. Man, a lot of people have a really hard time understanding Play.
It's for advanced developers.
No, it's everyone saying, hey, can we start the Play One project again? Come on.
Wow. Mailing list traffic. Play has a lot of mailing list traffic.
Right.
That's
This
nice.
was June 2012.
That's number of. That's members on the list.
So this was this was last
that's
year.
traffic. That's traffic,
in
not
June.
numbers.
Right. And then if
Ah.
you see in December, like Grails is catching up, or I don't know what happened to Play. Like everyone takes
we were
a
on
month off.
vacation, yeah.
Is that something you do in France? You take December off? That's where all the Play developers are. And then January it kicks back up big time.
Yep.
But half of those messages are like, what do you want to name the Play 1 project? Right? Or why is it in Scala? Come on.
All right. Books on Amazon. Play Framework has 3. We've got some more in the works. Nikolai back there is writing a Play for Java book. It's going to be great.
And I think this is actually impressive for both frameworks. I mean, the fact that there's 8, right, creates a paradox of choice, and now you're like, which one do I buy? But with Play, it's pretty easy. You just pick one of the 3. And I think it's great that, a lot of times when there's new frameworks out there and people are, trying to learn them, and there's no books, it reflects badly on them. So, publishers have recognized that these are both hot frameworks and written books on them. Releases this
did
year.
we update this? Yeah.
Yeah,
Major
2013.
releases? You're
There's
right.
one each. They're tied.
Yeah, they're tied.
But 2012.
Nice. Yeah, Grails had
Still,
a bunch.
I mean,
3 more.
The difference is Grails maintain their 1.0 branch. Played in.
Stack Overflow questions. So Play Framework. About a fourth of the number of Grails questions.
And if you think about like the years they started, right? I mean, they're probably about even.
That's true.
And if we took this, obviously they'd grow some more.
This is my favorite one. Hacker News. The Play 2 final released announcement had 195 upvotes on Hacker News. The Grails 2.0 release announcement had 6. Not great.
That's because they had backwards compatibility. People are like, meh.
We forgot one. Which
that?
one has a prettier website? I think that the new playframework.com is a really pretty website.
Didn't everyone hate it because it was too green?
No, everybody loves green, man. It means money. Money.
Did you notice that like Spring MVC, Grails, and Play are all green? Is there any other green web frameworks? It's like a sign of success.
Right?
So if you're going to do a new framework, pick green. Tapestry, right?
Right? Okay, conclusions. So on our ecosystem analysis, Play is difficult to search for.
Right, you got to use Play Framework in quotes.
Yep.
If you do Play Framework together, the search engines will split them up. But
Yeah, that's
it's
the
tough to
problem.
search for. And this was mostly last year. Play has momentum issues. And it's funny, what I've realized is your perception of the world and what is hot and what is not today is purely based on who you follow on Twitter. So
That's Matt Rabel's law of Twitter.
If you want to
influence.
think that Grails is hot, then just follow the Grails developers. If you want to think Play is hot, follow them, and it'll be hot for you. So I don't know if they still have momentum issues. I mean, it was a lot of that was based on the fact on the mailing list, and it never really stopped over the last year that people were like, hey, what about 1? What about, I really liked it. And I think the difference was that Play 1 was revolutionary for Java. It was something that didn't exist in Java, and you still got to write Java. And like if they had released Play 2 and never told anyone it was based on Scala, they might have been better off. But then the problem was the Scala templates, right? And people are like, oh God, I got to learn that.
Yeah, so luckily we can swap that out. But Play's momentum has been getting better. LinkedIn just announced that they're basically moving everything over to Play and Scala.
Right.
And we've had number of other big kind of customers saying, hey, we're building our businesses on Play. So we're pretty excited
It's
about
funny
that.
because LinkedIn started using Grails in 2008.
So they just switch every 5 years.
Right, yeah.
So, okay.
Yeah. But we had similar experiences with documentation and questions. We ran into issues. We found most of it on the documentation, and we used a similar pattern where we tried Stack Overflow first, and then if we couldn't find it there, we went to the mailing list, and any problem we had, we got solved. Right? It wasn't like
Yeah.
we ran into any roadblocks.
Yeah, there weren't any really showstoppers, so that was good.
And there's Play has so much documentation and so many plugins. A lot of them are outdated. So it's
Grails does.
Grails, right? And yeah, you don't have any plugins.
We do.
You're getting them though, right?
Are you guys sensing the general just lies that are being spread? FUD. Yeah. Okay. That's okay. Keep spreading your FUD. We'll see how that works out.
Is that it?
No. We have more. Code perspective.
That's it.
Whoa.
Oh, I got to do this again.
Oh gosh.
You just
See
use
those
it right
pretty
here.
okay, I could
Right.
just use this. Oh geez. Where's our other? Oh, they're there. We skipped them. Okay. Conclusions from a code perspective. So Ultimately, they're both kind of cater to this modern set of needs that developers have. So they're pretty similar from that perspective. I think that a lot of it came down to from the code perspective. Do you want to build your application in a type-safe language or a dynamic language? And I know that Groovy is certainly working on adding optional static typing. So that's good.
Right.
But for now.
And then the plugins were great for me. I mean, a lot of stuff was just figuring out how to install the plugin, which version to use.
You said you ran into a bunch of issues with plugins being outdated and not like working when you did your tests and those sorts of things.
When I upgraded, right? So in the last year when I upgraded, there was certainly an issue there, but it was because they moved a lot of stuff from application properties to build config. Right. So as soon as you figured out what to do, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, and that was interesting. We both updated our apps to the most recent version for this presentation, and my upgrade from Play 204 to Play 210 was pretty painless. There was a few changes that I had to make. The documentation on what changed was good. The compiler told me that things were not right. So it was a pretty simple process. I think it took me about a half an hour to upgrade my app, and I think your experience upgrading wasn't quite as smooth.
Took a little longer.
A little longer, like.
But I don't work for Spring
2 days.
You work for TypeSafe, so. I think, my biggest conclusion of this whole thing, and Play, and hopefully this doesn't offend you or whatever, is why would TypeSafe hire the best developer evangelist in the country if Play was all that? Right? So they hired James Ward to come in and convince people that it's the best web framework out there.
That worked really well with Flex, right?
It did for a while, and then Steve cut you off at the knees.
Good old Steve. Good old Steve. Yeah. Okay. Some statistical things here. So Grails has better support for the optimizations for the front end. So why slow, page speed, obviously. Some of those things you just kind of got out of the box.
Right.
And I had to do extra work to really optimize the client side. Just yesterday I moved all of my static assets over to a CDN. That certainly would have helped, but it was too late to make it into the load tests that we did. So it's nice having in Grails having some of that stuff built in. Lines of code. So as Matt mentioned, a bit more code for the Play application, but it was Java. So Scala would have been a lot less. The Apache Bench one that I just ran, you saw the results of that, so it was nice. And like we said, caching just helped massively for
and I think
performance.
It shows that if you want to make your app fast and scale, you need front-end optimization and you need caching. And then web framework, don't know if it matters that much, but you do get twice as fast on your benchmark tests.
Yep.
And if anyone has $150, because those ones cost $75 each, we'll happily run those tests again.
Yeah, we'll totally run them again.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing to point out here is that we really built these, as I said, as traditional web applications. Play was created for a modern web style, for single-page applications, REST services, real-time streaming, doing that in a reactive, efficient way. And so I think we weren't fully exercising, at least in the case of Play, really what Play's strengths are. So we got to redo this and do a single-page application with real-time streaming.
Well, and Grails 3 is adding all that stuff, right? They're basing it on a reactive core, so it'd be interesting to do it, right? Yep. When that's released. And
Grails 3 versus Play 2.1. Yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, so some links for you. Ubertracks.com has the presentation that you're seeing, has the running applications. You can actually try them out on there. And it's funny, somebody, my app has been up and running for a while since the last time we did it, and somebody goes in and tries to actually put a script tag into one of my input boxes to see hey, I got this guy. He totally, let this injection go through, and I just posted another comment. I was just laughing at the guy for trying it. I'm like, come on, I'm better than that. Play is better than that.
Right.
So that was kind of fun. So anyways, try them out. Check them out. For the actual source code, if you want to check that out, it's on my GitHub, Happy Trails. And then there's a branch for the Grails app and a branch for the Play app. And then the presentation is just on the master branch. But we had somebody actually create a Spring MVC version of this application. Right. So if you want to fork that Git repo and do it in Wicked, or I don't know what else would be cool. Nothing. There's nothing else cool.
These are the cool ones.
These are the cool ones. Okay. So, anyways, check it out. JamesWard.com is my blog. Rayable Designs is Matt's blog.
Yep.
And we have 1 minute left.
Questions?
Questions. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Why did you choose Play Java instead of Play Scala?
I started with Java. Why did I start with Java?
We said earlier that you didn't know Scala yet.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Until I took Martin's Coursera course on Scala, I just didn't know it well enough to
You
do
didn't
it.
want to spend the time like learning. You knew you'd lose then. Right?
Yeah. I'm going to create the Scala reactive Mongo version of this app, and it's going to just rock.
Well, the funny
It's
thing
gonna
is,
be-
you actually have a branch in there that's Scala and JavaScript.
Yeah, oh yeah, because
Right,
I'm moving
so-
towards a single page application with Scala in the back end. Yeah, it just isn't done yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody wants to contribute to the Scala version, that'd be nice. I've been trying to work on it on my plane flights, but not enough time yet. Other questions?
How did I make Spring Security work across sessions between the web servers? Right. So I never had to tell James about that bug until now.
Thank you. Awesome.
I didn't.
I owe you a beer. That was
Did you
fantastic.
plant that? Did you know?
No, that was amazing. Yeah. To be fair, Grails does have a plugin that handles that for you. There is a Heroku plugin for Grails that will help you with that. So, anyways, we're out of time, but thank you so much for coming. Hope that was useful. Thanks.